Thanks for listening to the Unscripted Dreams podcast. If you enjoy the show and want more, please join us on Patreon for exclusive episodes and videos. If you're looking for episode clips, please check out our YouTube page at the Unscripted Dreams podcast. Enjoy the show. Let's roll it.
Hey. As we know, life is full of surprises, both good and bad. The day-to-day journey is full of unforeseen obstacles, and sometimes it's hard to see our way through. Beyond the norm and mundane are where unscripted dreams live. Join us for thought-provoking discussions and interviews to help us navigate through the fog and create our own path. We are the Unscripted Dream Podcast, operating outside the margins to motivate and inspire our audience. So today's episode is fear. Biggest fear at that. So I know this is a unique episode, but a lot of things that come to mind with you being on the road to success or getting where you need to be, one of the biggest factors or elements that prohibit you from pushing your agenda forward, whatever that is fear. That's one piece of the pie, one slice of the pie. Fear. Now, for whatever reasons, you have some fear, whether that's fear of success, fear of mistakes, fear of other objects or opponents, competitors getting in the way. And that's what we're going to focus on today, with other things as well.
So fear of success is a major one. Because I believe there's just a mental component to it, and it needs to be addressed. And fear is something that, I'll share two fears that I have in this episode. But if I was to share any more, you could probably charge me for being my therapist for everybody who's listening. If I tell you guys anything else, so I'll give you guys a couple, but that'll be it. But just to circle back to success, it's one of those things where you have to believe that success is actually for you. There's a mindset that some of us may have at times, and we think that, well, we can't be successful because you've never seen anybody that you know that is successful, or there's no one that you can relate to that is successful. So you are in some ways you are the first person that is attempting to pursue success in the manner in which you've selected to.
So quote unquote fear of the unknown.
Sure, I can agree with that. But not only the fear of the unknown, but also just like fear of, well, I guess you're right, Joe, but fear of becoming something that you can't even see for yourself. And I think there's for some of us there's a prevalent voice that keeps us from pursuing certain avenues and really getting out there, putting ourselves out there, and really getting uncomfortable, because being uncomfortable is a huge part of overcoming your fear. And that goes to, like, maybe one of the most like basic fears you may have is, like, as a kid, I'm thinking like being scared of the dark.
Yeah, I was one of those kids.
so when you're scared of the dark, when those lights go off or you're in a dark place, you get real shaky. You get real shaky. But after you've been in the dark for a while, what happens? You get
your eyes adjust. Yeah, you get acclimated.
And you can maneuver in the dark without really much of an issue. And I think that's a very simplistic issue, very watered down version of it, but I mean it makes sense. So I guess I'll share as far as fear, because it goes beyond just kind of working on things in your, like, if you're working on business or you have personal goals that you're going on, because sometimes our goals are there's just like goals that we have like personally, like within our families and things like that. So, like, the one thing that I've dealt with probably the past couple weeks and earlier this week is that I've had two family members pass away. Like, in the last few weeks, I had one family member pass away 3 days ago. So it makes you, I think, makes you really look at some things. So for me, I'm like, we all know that person in the family who like doesn't come around. They don't come around much, but they show up every once in a while. I believe that I've, become that person. And I think that, having, family members pass away, really gave me the opportunity to, identify that, one of my fears is that, I end up being that person who doesn't come around as much, and that, I don't get to develop any relationships with, like cousins and other families that I haven't met before. Like I got, younger cousins that I've never met. They're younger, so of course, I don't know them very well, but I would like to know them, and I think that having when you deal with a loss, it makes you kind of think of those things, and it might push maybe one of your fears to the forefront, and it gives you an opportunity to perhaps analyze why it is that maybe, or for me at least, it gave me the opportunity to analyze why I don't come around as much, and to really consider why that occurs and what I can do about it.
I can resonate with that a little bit. And, we all have our reasons why we keep our distance and under certain capacities, whether it's, we have an objective for ourselves and, we trying to pursue that. Or there could be complications, which it could be a combination of both, which most likely it is. No, I don't know any family that's perfect, so I'm going to just leave that as it is. I can say, honestly, dealing with mortality, that's definitely, I wouldn't say that's a forefront fear at this stage of my life, but the whole idea or the concept, like Marcus mentioned, as far as like losing people that you're close to, or people that more or less represent you, or you represent them, however you see it. And that's a huge critical blow. That's mind changing, perspective changing. Whenever you experience a loss, man, you can people done died, because they're heartbroken. So that lets you know how intense or how powerful that can be. And there's no other way of explaining that. I feel like that's all spiritual. I think that that's just something you just have to work out for yourself, unfortunately. But I mean, hey, nobody's perfect, so I'd rather address those issues than run from them. I'll say that much. But would you say, Marcus, is that like your biggest fear, as far as like not being close to family? Or how would you resonate that? Like, how would you explain that?
If I was to rank it, is that what you're
Yeah, more or less, yeah, just rank it.
I think it's significant. Okay, so I guess to answer that, I have to provide some context for in that sense.
Okay.
So when I went through the process, and I'll lay this out later in the episode, but there's a process that I think we can go through to kind of help us identify some things. But I go back and I think about how I was growing, how I was growing up. I think about how I grew up in one place till I was, really until I was 14, and I left. I moved from really Ohio to Michigan, and I was accustomed when I was growing up to really being around, family. I was still around family when I moved to Michigan. It was a new family. It was just different. The people I was used to seeing on a regular basis, I didn't see them as often. I was more so turned into an occasional type of thing. And, going to college, moving further away, it turned into more of I would say rarely I would see folks pretty much. And not even seeing folks, but just having like normal routine conversation with people. Really, from going to seeing somebody every week, every other week, to seeing somebody once every couple of years, or if something unfortunate happens, or if somebody passes away or something like that, which is not when you want to be like catching up with people, in my opinion. It shouldn't be. Unfortunately, it happens a lot, but I don't think it should be tragedy that brings people together. It shouldn't be the only thing that brings people together. So anyway, but as I was looking at it and really analyzing what kind of happened to me over time, is that I think a part of the me transitioning to moving to Michigan to moving further away when I went to college was there was a part of me that um, I think to make that transition from Ohio to Michigan, there was a part of me that had to let go of being comfortable in one place. And I think that was what it's really is the basis of what allows me to move around so much because I don't get comfortable anywhere. Like I've been in South Carolina for longer than I want to. Was it three years? I try not to count, but math. So, but I've been here longer than I like to, but I don't feel anything that's tying me down here as I am actively looking to leave, and to not really have a destination. So, I think it was that I don't grow attached to places. But if you ask me where home is where like my family is. It's where my parents are. Like that's where home is for me. So I think me. I mean, going back almost how old am I now? Look, going back almost 20 years. 20 years is what is what really started a shift in how my interactions with family have been probably for the past decade or so, and me kind of not being around as much, and I'm not I mean I'm taking accountability for my actions because once I'm an adult, that's kind of all on me to reach out and set trips and make phone calls and check in with people and things like that. So there's no blame being placed here because that's on me to initiate that. But still, and I think maybe I answered your question in a roundabout way, Joe. But it's very if we're looking to really understand where your fears might come from, you have to identify the source of when something kind of changed for me. And for me, when things changed for me is when I moved from Ohio to Michigan. That changed a lot. That changed a lot for me, and I think it's like I said, it's a good thing. It's a good thing because I can, chase opportunities, and I have the ability to be flexible and not feel tied down to one place. But it also gives me the kind of idea in my mind that I can just kind of float and not really be tied down to any place, which puts me further away from a family.
Okay. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to answer that. Everybody's perspective is different on that, so I just want to be clear. But I can identify with that to on a bigger scale. So I understand.
Macro
For sure, definitely. Especially with a kid like me, growing up and don't think I've ever really dealt with or ever known for the most part. After the age of 9 or 10, it's literally just been me, my father, and my mother. So it's a really close niche. So it's just one of those things. Like if something happened between one of us three, it gets intense. So I get it. I would like to just go ahead and just flat out say that my biggest fear would probably be failure, man. Not much comes to mind just because if you know me, I'm pretty laid back and I usually have a straight face like all the time. So I think failure is a huge one, man, just because I'm so hard on myself. I don't know if it's the only child syndrome thing or whatever, but I always feel like if I can't do it, nobody else can do it for me. So if I put it my best or my full effort into something, I anticipate on making that happen because I know nobody else. I mean, that's not real, but that's the fear. You put up this false expectation of nobody else can help you out or assist you. So a lot of times I just own my stuff and I try to my best ability make things happen.
So Joe, okay, so if failure is one of your biggest fears,
it's the biggest one.
You have to have a definition of success. Do you have a definition of success?
You know what? If you asked me this question about 2 or 3 years ago, I honestly would say no. And the reason why I would say no is because every time the bar is being set, I supersede it. So every time I'm pursuing something that I want to get, once I obtain it, the drawing board, you go back to it. So I honestly feel like it's ever changing. So my motto or definition of success today, right now, is more or less establishing more financial solidity, or if that makes sense. Like, I would like to be more qualified in that area and more established in my professional, however that may look. I really don't have no huge expectations as far as how it needs to be done, because I know it's not going to be on my time. But as far as what I'm doing right now, I'm on that track as far as getting there and being established in the organization I represent currently.
Okay, so that's one of the key pieces, I think, is you have to have, or we have to have a definition of what success is, because
Right,
you can't say my biggest fear is failure, but then you don't have a definition of what success is for you, and that's going to be different for everybody.
right,
So, when I think about failure and success, I think about, you know, success for me having the flexibility to help people to go places. Like if somebody has something happen, I had the flexibility to leave and just go. Like maybe I can just leave and just go stay in some location for a month just to be a support for somebody and have the flexibility to do that and have the means to do it. So, success isn't, I don't think, like we determine what success is for us. So it might, like you could be a garbage man. Not saying there's nothing wrong with being a garbage man. I'm just saying, like, you could be a garbage man, and that's fine. Or you could be a plumber, and that's fine. I want to talk about skilled labor in maybe another episode, but I mean, those things are fine. Success doesn't have to be what society says, success is. Success has to be what we set for ourselves. For somebody that might be, success is being able to, at whatever stage they are in their lives, is being able to see their grandkids and being able to, provide for them and, assist them in, some capacity. So it's, like I said, it's different for everybody, but I think the first step is really identifying what your unique definition of success is, and, really going from there. If you're worried about being a failure, you have to define exactly what a failure is to you.
well, I'll tell you what, man, I keep it simple. How about a crib and a coupe with low mileage?
Oh, used? Used?
Used? It can be. Why not? If it's low mileage.
Because low mileage can be new because it's at least a few miles on that car. It's always a few, man. But
No, man. But overall, like, before we move to the next discussion, I just want to make it clear that by any means, like, I know what success is. I think I'm successful. I know Marcus is successful as well. But it gets to a point when you push yourself past, you keep breaking your own records. You keep surpassing your own expectations, man. You got to set that bar higher and higher and higher. And that's why it's harder, and it gets harder to determine that, because you always are scrapping, or you're basically like a scavenger. You're trying to see what's next, because you didn't kind of obtain so many achievements, awards, however you look at it. You had so many bouts since you were yay so big, and you accomplished so much. It gets kind of challenging at this point, or in this stage of your life, in the adulthood, if you do everything right, where you're just like, what's next?
sure, Angel, I'm gonna pivot to my second fear. The last one I'm gonna share. All right.
Let's go
so,
for it.
so my second fear. And there's no ranking on. There's no ranking on these, but my second, I say, fear is spending a disproportionate time doing things or jobs that I don't want to do. All right. So 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 that, I think, for me, it's really about, and that could be your job or your personal life. And I think for me, one of my things has always been to align myself in a position where I'm helping people. Even if I'm working for somebody else, like, just put me in a position where I'm doing something that's beneficial to people, and that the net product of what we are doing collectively is a benefit to the individuals that are being served. So it's not, it's not that everything I have to do has to be through my business. I don't have a problem working with other people as long as our goals are aligned. It's never really been an issue for me. I think it's just about doing stuff that matters and doing stuff that you feel makes an impact on the things that I guess the metrics that are important to you. Because for some people, it might be I want to make as much money as possible by any means necessary, and for those folks, they don't care about helping people. And if they're in a job doing social work or something, they're going to hate themselves and they're going to hate the job. And they're probably the worst case manager, social worker you've ever had.
And that's the worst thing you can deal with is someone in burnout that does social services.
Yeah, so, I think that is one that's big for me because there's, there's things when you think that there's a lot, like Joe, and for everybody listening, there's a lot of stuff that we do that there's a lot of stuff that we do that we don't want to do. Show me a person who wants to go to the DMV. Show me a person who enjoys taking out the trash. Show me a person who actually enjoys going to the doctor that's not a hypochondriac. There's just a lot of things we do on a daily basis that they don't feel optional, and they're just necessary, and they're not really enjoyable. And I like to minimize those activities as much as possible because I've spent many years doing things that I don't want to do, and if I can avoid doing those things, I will. And I think people might take that a certain way, but that's the facts. Like if you hate your job and you don't like going to your job, you are spending a ton of time doing something you don't want to do, and we have to take action on that. And I think that's why that's one of a fear of mine, is just because it's painful to spend your life doing things that you don't want to do.
Because you honestly feel like you're giving your life away, you know what I'm saying? You feel like you're throwing it away, and that's one of the worst situations to be in.
So, Joe, if it's all right with you, I have a kind of three tips or 3 steps.
Hey, man, lay it on these
for
folks.
People dealing with their fears. Joe, please feel free to add on to these
all right.
if you like. But tip number 1, analyze your highest value fears. And, really take the time to ask yourself and investigate the fears as well. So like I described earlier in the episode is, I really trace back my relationship with my family, me kind of being, turning into really somebody who comes around very rarely. I was able to kind of see where that split occurred by just doing some really looking inside myself and really just investigating my own timeline and seeing where that, that split really occurred, and that was beneficial. So that definitely, analyze your highest value fears and, ask yourself and investigate the fear. Tip number 2, be honest with yourself. Process what's going on, and what I always say is that if you are not honest with yourself, then that's a problem. I always say that if you're someone who lies to other people, do yourself a favor and at least tell yourself the truth. If you're gonna lie to everybody else, be honest with yourself at a minimum.
Oh man.
If anything else, you're doing yourself a disservice. So. And I say the last tip, I have is, get into the solution phase, and ask yourself, can you combat this fear? And an example I'll provide for that is another one of my ongoing issues is that, like I have a speech impediment. If you listen to me talk long enough, you'll hear it, but some people don't notice it, other people do. And, one of the things that I was able to do over time was, put myself in situations where I had to talk more frequently. And if that's not good enough for you, put yourself in a situation where there's something formal and it's structured that provides you a means and a way to work on those skills. So for me, last year, maybe a year and a half ago, I joined Toastmasters. And if you're not familiar with Toastmasters, this is specifically a group designed to work on your public speaking. And as I went, I paid my dues. I was a member. They posted me. If you go back and you look for me, you can find me. Now I haven't showed up in quite some time, but during my time there, it was a good opportunity to see other people who are working on their public speaking and people who actually were not as polished as maybe I was. Like, I actually realized that I had some polish on me after being around some other folks. But then I also had the opportunity to see some people who are like extremely timid grow and really like blossom into something that was, very impressive. And I was very pleased to be a part of something that pushed people forward, and I was pleased to be a part of something that provided me like formal resources and a structure and like a meeting and having a community of people who are all focused on improving how they speak to others in public, and people all across the spectrum. So that's a good opportunity because public speaking was something that, I definitely had a fear of. I'm not saying I'm 100% cured of getting in front of people and having a discussion, but that was a step in the right direction. And that's an example of something that is simple that you can do to put yourself in a better situation if you find yourself being fearful of, talking to people or growing your business. Maybe you meet with a small business group at some point, or you join the chat room and you just kind of fall back until you're ready to, speak to people and step up and say something. So there's many ways to reach out to do it, but I guess I was just saying that's just one example of, how you can approach it, because if you have a fear and there's something that scares you, there's perhaps a resource out there for you. And if there's not a resource, there's an opportunity for you to create one that will meet your needs. But, we have to always think in solutions and be willing to, find a way to find the answer. Because each problem, I guess, has its own level of complexity that will need to be addressed. But Joe, I'll close on that.
Yeah, man. I really do appreciate you sharing that. That was one thing in my early years is I exuded. I was like a wounded dog out there. My level of confidence wasn't as much nowhere compared to what it is now. So I can resonate with public speaking and a lot of other things as well. So, you just gotta work through it and, hold yourself accountable just like he did. And once you grind through it, you'll see the better half or the better side. You'll see some improvement there. So I think one thing with fear that you need to keep in mind that it's nothing but expectations that you have for yourself. And it could be other things as well, but the thing that you need to realize is with fear, it's not something that particularly has taken place or transpired in most cases, So I think that you need to realize that it's more or less a game of you mind screwing yourself, and you just gotta realize what's real and what's not to really keep you focused and dialed in. I mean, I'm human. I run through the same stuff. I just told you my biggest fear is failure. I get in my own head about stuff. I don't need a mouthpiece. I don't need none of that. I can tune that out. It's all about, I'm really at war against myself. So I'm my biggest critic, and that's my downfall. So that has nothing to do with anybody. That's strictly personal. I just hope you guys enjoyed this experience. This is supposed to be like a laid-back episode for you to kind of think collectively what's your biggest fear and how you plan on attacking that. I think that that's very critical for people to listen to because this is something you deal with every day. There's something there's something on your mind when you wake up every day and all day every day, and you always figure out how you're going to get through this, how you're going to surpass this, how you're going to make things happen. And, I think that this is a PSA for you to address that. So whatever you're lacking in or you feel like you're lacking in or whatever's on your mind, I think you need to start taking action and buckle down and actually attack that fear. And I hope that it will do some greatness for you, which I know it will. But you have to see that for yourself. And that's all I got. So I hope you guys out there really take some time out and really write those fears down and listen to them tips by Marcus and make things happen for yourself. Thank you.
But hey, check out that Joe's Motivational Monday this week, or what was the name of it? Joe's real good. I'm plugging that before we get off of here.
You plugging it?
Yeah.
Okay.
What was the
Give
name of
me
it?
give me a second so I can actually get the name. It's actually called Wreckless Abandonment.
Yeah. So check that out. That was good. I'm plugging it. Hey, take care, be safe, and we'll see y'all next time.
Later.
Gaps down.